So today we're going to be talking about 5 ways to combat your imposter syndrome when it comes to posting on social media. I'm Bex from Social Media Executive. I'm a social media trainer, a social media coach. And this is Laura, who is the expert on hormones and mindset. So do you want to give yourself a little bit of an introduction, Laura?
Sure, thank you. So, hi everyone. So I'm a hormone and mindset coach, and somehow I'm starting to be a bit of a business mentor as well, because I know that all of the problems that a lot of people face in business, things that I've gone through as well myself, but I'm just really passionate about people growing and developing in whatever way they want to. So whether that's in business or otherwise. So I'm so happy to be here today and talk to you about imposter syndrome, which is such a massive topic for a lot of people.
Oh, thanks, Laura. And it is imposter syndrome. I think we've all suffered from it at some point in our business careers, and it's certainly quite common at the beginning of, if you're just launching your new business. This can be one of the main things that holds people back. So we're just going to be running through 5 top tips. So this live stream is brought to you by the Social Flock. The Social Flock is my social media support group where we help busy business owners to create consistent content. We don't write it for you. Basically, empower you to do it yourselves, and we come online every week and write our posts together. And I also provide lots of tips and advice to help businesses combat their social media and get it done without wasting lots of time. So I will put that in the chat if anyone's interested in finding out a little bit more about our group. Anyway, in the meantime, Laura, tell us a little bit then about imposter syndrome, why we've got it, and how do we really combat it when it comes to social media?
So the concept of imposter syndrome refers to people who believe that they are undeserving of their success and their achievements, or the esteem in which they're held. So they might feel like they're not as competent or intelligent as other people think they are. And sometimes they might think that soon enough, people are going to discover that actually they're not that good after all. And so it can sound like, oh, I'm not actually very good. Or what if people find out that I'm not as good as they think I am? Sometimes it can sound more like, God, who do I think I am trying to do that? Or you might do something really well and put it down to a fluke. So, for example, passing your driving test, you might think, oh, well, I just got lucky on the day. It was the examiner just being nice. So we're very quick to put down our achievements. And a lot of this stems from childhood. It can go quite deep, actually, for people who maybe they had a lot of pressure on them when they were children, or they were very successful academically at school and then felt pressure of being kind of up on a pedestal and felt like they had to kind of continue with that success. And like you say, it's really common. Imposter syndrome is really common. But I think people think it's just something which affects a particular demographic, like women. But actually, it can affect anyone. And if imposter syndrome goes unchecked, then it can really cause disruption just from a general day-to-day life and emotionally, because we have this kind of naggy voice, I call it, in your head saying, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. But when we think about business, it can really help us stop us from progressing with our aspirations for our business, from growing our business. And, social media and visibility, imposter syndrome can have a really detrimental effect there as well.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? And sometimes you see people on social media and they look so confident, don't they? And you just think, oh my goodness, they're so amazing, they know so much. When actually, in actual fact, that's what they're putting out on social media. It doesn't necessarily mean that's how they feel, or if they've never felt, that imposter syndrome before.
Yeah.
But also we do take for granted, don't we, what we know, and what knowledge we can impart as well.
Absolutely. And that's definitely what I want to cover today with my top tips. And I think from a social media point of view, I think a lot of the roadblocks that people face when it comes to posting on social media is around their mindset, isn't it? And that kind of comparisonitis of what everyone else is doing. And so if anyone watching this has ever felt like, oh, I can't post that, or people won't want to know about me, or something that I hear all the time, I feel really big-headed talking about myself. That's starting to sound like imposter syndrome, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so, today is all about sharing those kind of mindset tricks to help you with that, but also some more tangible techniques as well, to help you to break through that imposter syndrome and get visible with your social media. So shall I share my tips then?
Yeah, that would be great. Tell us how we can overcome our imposter syndromes.
Okay.
We suffer from. I mean, I suffer from it, and it's funny, if I'm feeling a little bit low, I'm terrible. I'm terrible. It's just like, oh gosh, I don't want to put myself out there, and I find it really, really hard. But yeah, what I tend to do, I tend to share images that I might have taken 12 months ago, rather than take a picture of me now, which I find a bit easier sometimes if you just can't face getting in front of a camera or anything.
Yes.
But yeah,
love that. So that's a great tip as well, isn't it? Because we've all got those photos on our phone from the better days. So there's nothing wrong with sharing.
More positive.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think I do these live streams every week, and they come quite naturally to me now. But actually, when I first went live, I think it took me 20 minutes to press the live stream button because I was so nervous. So, and again, I think I went live for about 30 seconds and then left it there. But yeah. So go on then, Laura. Tell us your top tips on how we can really sort of get ourselves out there and overcome our imposter syndrome.
Well, before I do that, actually, I think I do need to share with you the irony of me coming to talk today syndrome, and before I logged on having imposter syndrome about talking about imposter syndrome. Yeah. So the irony of that is not lost on me, but definitely there were feelings this morning of, can I do that? Am I the right person to do that? And actually the fact that I had those feelings probably means that I am the right person. But the top tips that I would like to share with you today, as I say, some of them are mindset tricks, some of them are a bit more kind of tangible and pragmatic. But the first one, and I think this is the most important, is get to know your imposter syndrome. So imagine this naggy voice that you've got in your head saying you can't do this, or you shouldn't do this, or you're not good enough. Imagine it was actually a fear, because it is. It's a real vulnerable fear. And so what I always say is just take some time to check in with yourself when you're feeling those kind of naggy voices in your head, and just ask yourself, what is the fear here? Is it a fear of what people will think? Is it a fear of maybe not getting any likes or comments, maybe like a fear of rejection?
Yeah, that's a big fear, isn't it?
Yeah, and I would say just take it a bit deeper and kind of ask why that's important. What is the fear behind that? And again, this can go quite deep, but this will just help you to be aware of any kind of internalized fears that you've got, that you might have. And I always say start from a place of understanding your imposter syndrome. That's really important for then working with it. And not letting it hold you back, because again, everyone has imposter syndrome, or most people have imposter syndrome. The key thing is how much it disrupts you, how much it affects you. So just learning to understand it a bit more is really important. And then being compassionate with it. And this is where my mindset coach head comes in, really. Because when we get frustrated with ourselves, that rarely helps us, and it can only make things worse. So if you're making friends with that naggy voice in your head and kind of saying, what's wrong? Let me listen to you. What have you got to say? Actually, you're not trying to just kind of lock it in a cage and not acknowledge it. You're letting it kind of air the fears that you've got that, as I say, could be quite deep and internalized. Imposter syndrome is just your brain's way of communicating. So try and almost open up that dialogue with your inner self where you can. So that's my first top tip. The second one is reality check. and counteract that imposter syndrome. Because as people, and I also think as business owners, we're really good, aren't we, at focusing on our flaws, on our imperfections, and on our gaps in knowledge. And this is where procrastination comes in, because rather than just putting out a post on social media, we start thinking about, well, maybe if I just do another course, then I can consider myself an expert. And we end up, collecting certificates. And that's great that you then have all this knowledge, but if no one knows about it, it's pointless, isn't it? So sometimes it's just about neutralizing that. And so if your imposter syndrome is telling you aren't good enough to post on social media about your area of expertise, or people will think you're big-headed for shouting about your business wins, first of all, follow that first tip of acknowledging where this is coming from. And then give yourself a gentle reality check and aim to counteract that naggy voice with something a bit more neutral and objective, or even positive, just by acknowledging your achievements, if you can. And this can take practice, because we're not very good at acknowledging our achievements, are we?
No.
But to give you some examples. One example could be, I don't have enough knowledge, or I'm not an expert. The knowledge check here is, try writing down a list of all of the skills and the experience that you have that have gotten you to this point in your area of expertise. And it could be things that are related to business, things that have happened in, in your personal life, your lived experiences, that actually do kind of build into your skills now within your role. So if you've got a lived experience of the problem that you now help to solve, actually that's an amazing story to share. And it doesn't have to be anything to do with the knowledge that you have, but maybe more your passion, if you're feeling that knowledge is a bit iffy for you, or you don't feel confident enough.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think you always focus on, when you're in that mindset, that negative sort of downward spiral, you focus on the negative things that could go wrong, but you forget the stuff that's gone really well in the past, don't you? And you forget, and I always say to businesses, have you got any reviews? Well, look through the reviews, read them. If you're feeling really, low, read through your reviews and see how amazing, how amazing you've helped people, because you just forget that's good stuff, don't you? And Kerry's just said, actually, she's just said it's like a roller coaster with the ups and downs.
Yeah,
so she said they're really good tips. Yeah.
And I think, going back to the reviews and testimonials, I mean, they're great for promoting your business, of course, but also they are evidence for you and your mindset, aren't they? Because as soon as your imposter syndrome starts saying to you, you're not doing a very good job, you literally have a quote from somebody who you have helped that says, counter to that you've done an amazing job and you've made an impact. So testimonials, reviews, they're so important for you just to have, but to share them on social media, again, if you're feeling like, oh, I don't want to be big-headed, it's objective, it's not big-headed. If somebody is literally giving you a quote, then it's an objective evidence that you can share, isn't it? So I would definitely champion sharing quotes and testimonials. And another one is, people say, I'm not very good at selling myself, so I can't put my business on social media. What I would say about this is, it's a kind of do feel the fear and do it anyway approach. But this is where using templates comes in really handy. So that's if that's like a Canva template, if it's some sort of if you can download like 30-day content plans that you can kind of just make it kind of more personal to you and your business. And that's just a really great way to kind of help you sell yourself in a more structured way. And these can be things like sharing your top tips for your industry or a client's recent win. And going back to that as well, sharing like a screenshot of their feedback, obviously without permission, is, that can be so valuable, because it's just evidence that you've not had to tamper with in any way. You've just shared it on social media. And it's very real and authentic to do that in a way that doesn't feel like you're selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think another one is people kind of say, well, what will people think of me for, starting my own business or trying to grow my business? And at this point, what I would always say, have the grace to remind yourself that actually you won't be for everyone. There will be people who kind of see your social media posts and think, not for me. And that's okay. Don't try to be for everyone, because the people who you serve, you will serve well. And coming from a place of knowing how important that the work that you do is and the difference that you can make means that the people who aren't for you, they won't even matter anyway. So just have the grace to remind yourself of that, and do it in a way that's really kind and compassionate to yourself. It's okay if not everyone likes my social media post, or if not everyone buys from me, or whatever it is, because you can't possibly be for everyone. Of course you can't. So that's another maybe reality check there.
Yeah, and I love that one, because you can't please everyone.
No.
So the most important person to please is yourself, and be happy working with who you want to work with. Yeah, and that's great.
And this actually brings me to my third tip. And this one is the one that kind of gives me goosebumps. And it's the one that I think is probably the most important, actually. Remembering your why and the importance of the work that you're doing. This is so, so important, because lots of people who I work with agree that their role now is the person that they needed 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And that's certainly true for me, because I remember when I first went self-employed feeling like I need someone to just cheerlead me and hold my hand when I first published my website. And I was so scared of all the things that could go wrong. And I just needed somebody to boost me up and, help me when my imposter syndrome told me I shouldn't try. And the work that I do now is very much to be that person who I needed. And I work with menopause coaches who say that the work that they do now is the work that they needed. They needed somebody to support them through their menopause. And in your business, you will provide a solution for a problem that has probably resonated with you personally at some point. And you might like to, I'm a huge fan of journaling, so you might like to write.
Kerry mentioned those. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Gratitude journals. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I would say is write down the answers to these 3 questions that I'm about to ask you, and use them to reflect, but you might also like to use them as content. So the first question is, why does my work matter? And I mean, like, really, why does it matter? What's the difference that I can make to the clients who I serve? Where do I take them in terms of transformation? What's their point A and what's their point B? And how do I impact them on a surface level? So, I make their life a little bit easier, and on a deeper level. So I make their life a bit easier so that they can actually thrive in their business, and they can earn the money that they deserve to earn, and, have a great time with their family. Really take it deeper with this. How do you impact the clients that you work with? And I know that not everyone serves kind of like coaches like I do. It could be that you're thinking, well, actually, I provide a product, and it's maybe not as deep as that, but it is, because every product that you sell is a solution to a problem that is a real sticking point for your clients and the people that you serve.
Or it gives them joy, doesn't it? I work with a few artists, and the joy that their products give to their clients is just amazing. Yeah,
I love that. And it really is about, and why is that so important? Why is the joy of your clients so important? Why do you care so much? Really, I would encourage everyone to go into this and journal on this a little bit. And then with compassion, I'll just remind you that the people who you serve, the people who, the artists within the flock create art for, the lives that you change, the impact that you make on the world, that can only be done if the world knows about you. And that's why this is so, so important, because you can have all of the knowledge, you can have all of the certificates, you can have all of the passion, but if the world doesn't know about that, then what you're actually doing is stopping yourself from helping them.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important way to counteract imposter syndrome, because rather than thinking, who am I to share that? Maybe we need to start thinking, I have a duty to share this. If I want to do my business justice and the people who I serve justice, I have to be more visible. I have to stand in that strength. And what a shame it would be to have so much passion and knowledge and skills to be able to provide a real solution for someone, only for them to know that you exist.
Yeah.
That would
No,
be
it's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. Are there any comments or anything, Bex?
No. So that was really good. I'm like sat here mesmerized listening to you, because
Cool.
you know, it is just so, you know, so important, isn't it, about focusing not on you and your internal fears, as it were. It's actually focusing on, right, you're here, it's your duty to help your clients. And I think that really helps to sort of turn it on its head, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I've got a couple more to go. So
yeah, come on, let's go. I'm excited.
So, well, I'll share with you that a core goal for me within my networking group, Get Shit Done Club, is for people to walk into the room and feel so inspired by the amazing work that the other people in the room are doing, but also at the same time knowing that actually those incredibly successful people are just normal people.
Yeah.
They're not ultra lucky like you. They work hard, they have knowledge, they have skills to be successful and thrive even when they're up against it. They're not that different from you. And that's really important for me from a networking perspective. So my fourth tip is to surround yourself, both in person and on social media, with people who are inspiring, but also who are just like you. And be inspired by people who are doing well, and do learn from them, whilst at the same time knowing that if they can do it, then so can you. You know, they're not, there's nothing special about them in that perspective, that they're just people doing well, and there's no reason why you can't have your own version of that success. And there's always a danger, isn't there, when we talk about other people, that we do have that green-eyed monster or that comparisonitis. You know, when you see somebody doing well who might do similar work to you, and you start feeling like, oh, I wish I had that, or it's not fair that they're doing so well. And what I would always say is just get into the habit of switching up the mantra, adding something a bit more positive and affirming, or a bit more helpful. So you could start saying to yourself, whenever you notice this green-eyed monster kind of going, it's all right for them, they're doing okay, you start kind of with, they're brilliant, they are brilliant, and I can have that for myself, or I can't wait till I have that for myself.
Yeah.
And the beauty of social media is, if somebody is triggering you, if you're finding that they're constantly coming up on your feed and it is having a negative impact, you can just unfollow them. And that's the beauty of social media.
Absolutely. I love that tip. Yeah. And you do, you know, I've done it myself. It's just like, you know, if it's not helping you on your business journey, just unfollow them. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And also, you know, if you're noticing that somebody is doing really well and they seem to be really successful, just remember what I said earlier, that, you know, often it's successful, high achieving people who also live with imposter syndrome. And so they could be in a room feeling like exactly the same as you. So let's all be kind and supportive of that as well. And, you know, have that kind of solidarity that everyone can be brilliant, and everyone can be, you know, great at things and different, and there's enough work to go around. We don't need to be kind of envious of people and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And my fifth tip is to focus on growth. So whatever stage you're at now in terms of your social media, just focus on building. So it could be that you currently only use one platform, and you know that you really ought to be using a platform like LinkedIn, for example, but you're so terrified of LinkedIn because you don't understand it, or you've never really used it before. just start by creating an account. And if that's all you do this week, fine. And then maybe you'll start to connect with people on LinkedIn who you know you have commonality with. You know, we're not trying to even get custom from this at this point, purely just networking, because that's what LinkedIn really is about. And just think about, what can I gain from being here? Imagine you're a sponge. So if you know that you're not an expert in LinkedIn and you're scared to post all of a sudden and you're a bit worried about that, don't. Just be there, be present, and be in that environment where you see other people doing it, because that will kind of help you to think, well, again, if they can do it, then so can I. And if you feel like you have a gap, so, you know, mentioned Canva earlier, if you feel like you really want to be on Instagram, but you can't because you can't use Canva, just think about this from a progressive and growth perspective. So first of all, you don't need to have Canva to be on Instagram. That would be the first thing. So that's maybe a bit of a mindset trick there. But also, every knowledge gap that you have is fillable. So if you don't know much about Canva and you feel like you should, well, you can learn. There are people who can support you with that. There are courses within Canva that can help you with that. There is so much knowledge out there that every knowledge gap that you have is fillable. So don't let it be a roadblock, but just enjoy the journey of learning and becoming more confident in social media, and being okay with not being the expert in it.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. I think it's so important, you know, like you said, I think LinkedIn is one of the big platforms that people really struggle with starting out on. And that's just some really good advice, really, is, you know, and I always say, just start with something that you're comfortable with. You know, it might be just a text only post. You can do text only posts on LinkedIn and then work your way up slowly. Yeah, and it's interesting. We have a few members in our social flock who joined the social flock and they've never really posted on LinkedIn. But like you said, being part of that supportive, having that supportive membership community, now they're posting on it regularly and they're doing really well. And they're just like, I can't believe I've not posted on LinkedIn before. Now they're really comfortable with the platform. But it's having that support mechanism just to give you that little push in the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know what it is about LinkedIn. It just seems to terrify people.
It does. It's anything new, and I think it's just seen as that really sort of professional platform, isn't it? And people are like, oh, am I professional enough to be on it? And absolutely everybody is in it. And I love Kerry did a little one. A little brief comparison is the thief of joy. I like that. Oh, well, thank you, Laura. So if people want to get in touch with you, then how do they get in touch with you if you want more information to help with their sort of mindset when it comes to their imposter syndrome?
Well, obviously you can find me on LinkedIn. So get yourself on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Laura Tia Jones. I also have a Facebook group called the Get It Done Club, which is just a kind of networking group that people would be most welcome to join. And my website there at the bottom, which is tiajonescoaching.co.uk.
Oh, no, well, it's been really good. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. And if you've got any questions, you know, please do post them in the chat, even if you're watching this on catch up, because, you know, we will happily come back and answer those as well. And the next week, so if you know you're struggling to post on LinkedIn, next week I've got 3 tips to make your content stand out on social media. So that's next Wednesday's live stream at 12:30. So I'd just like to say a huge thank you again, Laura, for joining me today. And please do give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this live stream, and we'll see you all again next week. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.